back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle, and the feud between Steven Crowder, at Louder with Crowder, versus the Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, all those individuals, is heating up. And I'm going to say right from the get-go that regardless of where you fall on this, by all means, it's still going to be a very interesting article to go over. It is not about money, despite what individuals are making it seem like. If you had any sort of, if you were paying attention to the videos and the context, I kind of feel like that's obvious. Candace Owens does not think so, and I am on Crowder's side with this one. But let's go through this article from Forbes and see what they have to say. Right-wing pundits Ben Shapiro and Steven Crowder clash over $50 million deal. Far-right YouTuber Steven Crowder has accused conservative media outlets like the Daily Wire of conspiring with tech companies to censor conservative views after the company offered Crowder a $50 million deal that would cut his compensation if his social media channels were demonetized or boycotted, which Crowder called a slave contract. Now, this is all technically true. I don't know if you accuse them of, conspiring with tech companies so much as kowtowing and bowing to them. It is a little bit different, and that's more the vibe that I got. He accused them of kowtowing to them. But regardless, I mean, for the most part, I say this is true. In a video posted online this week, Crowder said that some outlets were in bed with tech companies and were colluding to ultimately demonetize and censor right-wing views on social media platforms, though he didn't name any outlets specifically. And to be fair, this is true. I mean, we've seen this happen. We've seen many right-wing outlets get demonetized, get shadow banned, the whole line, Twitter, YouTube. I mean, there's been expose after expose on this. This is something that just does happen. Regardless of whether you think it's right or wrong, the fact is that it happens. Crowder also shows excerpts of a contract from one company, later confirmed to be the Daily Wire, with the compensation penalizations if his programming faced loss of advertising revenue, including from advertiser boycotts or if Crowder's channels were demonetized by social media platforms. Now, that might sound normal and all well and good from the get-go, but the thing is, with the type of content that Crowder does, he's often demonetized. He is often shadow banned. So to put in his contract, if this happens to you, which it is an inevitability that it will, that they will pay him less money, yeah, that's a problem. And for someone like Crowder, who's big, rich, famous, doesn't need that money, probably doesn't need that money, but who's to say? It's not like I know the guy or know his finances. Maybe that's not an issue for him, but his whole point, his crusade, was that for me, it's not the issue. It's the young people, the up-and-comers, the individuals that, might only have 100,000 subscribers or 300,000 subscribers, who aren't 6 million subs like me, who are now going to be facing a loss of income if they get demonetized from YouTube or whatnot because of what they're saying, because maybe YouTube doesn't like their right-wing agenda. And yeah, that's completely fair. Just because Crowder may be able to keep his head above water if he, gets demonetized on YouTube, doesn't mean that other individuals will. And if, Daily Wire is going to use these archaic and predatory contracts to cover themselves, while it's understandable from a business perspective, it's still not fair on a moral perspective. And considering conservatives are supposed to be the ones with, the morals and the ethics, at least that's how they claim that they are, that's how they think of themselves, it's kind of hypocritical. While Crowder never named the media company or specified their proposed salary, he said the contract's immoral terms are effectively punishing conservative content creators on behalf of big tech. The Daily Wire CEO, Jeremy Boring, confirming in a YouTube video Thursday details of Crowder's job offer, claiming the YouTuber misrepresented the contract that would have awarded Crowder $50 million over 4 years. Now, $50 million does sound like a lot, but when you break it down, they're not just saying, yo, Crowder, here you go. You personally get, $50 million over the course of 4 years, $12.5 million a year. It's not that simple. The $12.5 million covers everything, covers paying all of his staff, his studio locations, camera equipment, any sort of travel if he was to go out and do the Change My Mind segments. So he has to then take that $12.5 million a year and allocate it accordingly for the entire year, including paying his staff, himself, as well as any other expenses that might come up. So don't just look at that number and be like, 50 million? Oh man, what a crybaby. He's not getting 50 million, more than 50 million. Like it's a little bit more nuanced than that. Boring chalked up the contract stipulations to runnings a profitable media business and said Crowder seems to think he deserves to be paid millions and millions and millions of dollars, whether his show drives revenue to the Daily Wire or not. Well, yes and no. He should be paid what he is worth, and first of all, a lot of individuals, are Crowder fans. I think that saying, hey, $12.5 million is low for everything we do for the conservative space, if that's what he values himself at, and if that can be backed up with stats and numbers and whatnot, very well may be true. I mean, it could have been a low ball offer. But if it's not about the money, which is what Crowder's been saying, it's more about the predatory nature of the contract, not the actual dollar amounts. To my knowledge, and I've watched these videos, Crowder has not complained about the dollar amounts. He's complained about the predatory nature of the contract. Far-right media personalities criticized Crowder, including the Daily Wire co-founder Ben Shapiro, who said it was rather nasty to attack friends over his misinterpretation of a document that offered you $50 million. Okay, they keep saying a document that offers you $50 million, and yeah, that it did offer him $50 million. $50 million over 4 years, so maybe say $12.5 million a year. Use the smaller a number is, the easier it is for the human mind to wrap its head around. So use the smallest number, $12.5 million a year, so it's easy to wrap the head around, and then maybe explain why that number is at least what you think worth it. You know, why is $12.5 million a year worth it? Matt Walsh, who hosts the show on the Daily Wire, said the suggestion of the company's pundits somehow muzzled or controlled is blatantly absurd, while Candace Owens said it was a total bitch move. And no, it's not a bitch move, because at the end of the day, so much of their stuff is behind their own paywalls, not because they want to make the additional money, but because that's how they have to make their money, because what they are saying that's not behind the paywalls will get them demonetized on YouTube. So they basically have to play ball with big tech. Crowder is saying we should stop playing ball with big tech. That's how they get what they want, and that's how we stay more or less silenced. Like, how many people out there only listen to the free version of Crowder, or only listen to the free version of Ben Shapiro, or whatever, and don't pay for it because they just can't or don't want to, whatever the reasoning may be? They're losing out on a lot of potential listeners and content being out there by putting it behind a paywall because they're afraid of YouTube demonetizing them or anything to that aspect. And Crowder wants to fight that, which I completely understand. Crowder defended himself in a YouTube video Thursday, saying his comments were not about the money and that he encouraged the Daily Wire to change their business model to not rely so much on advertiser revenue, which again, I think is completely valid. That's a good mentality to have. If there's a penalty for being demonetized on YouTube because your business model requires that a huge component of it, you need to change your business model or this movement cannot work, Crowder told Boring during a call that was played in Crowder's Thursday video. And again, I don't see anything that is incorrect there. If the penalty for being demonetized on YouTube because your business model requires a huge component of it, you need to change your business model or this movement cannot work. Where is the lie? If any business model is threatened by demonetization on YouTube, and the risk of demonetization is very high, then your business model just inherently is flawed. Key background. Crowder previously had an online show with The Blaze, Glenn Beck's media company, but announced last month that he was leaving. Crowder has long been a controversial personality on social media, particularly on YouTube, when in March 2021 demonetized his main channel, making it impossible for him to run ads and earn a profit. YouTube did not reveal if a specific event triggered Crowder's demonetization, but did remove one of Crowder's videos for violating YouTube's presidential election integrity policy, the platform said, and suspended him for a week. Later, in October 2021, Crowder was suspended again after he uploaded a video discussing a story of a transgender woman serving time in a California women's prison who allegedly raped and impregnated a fellow inmate, a claim that has been debunked. Okay, so he got it wrong. That's completely fair. I don't know if he should be suspended for that, but if the news gets stuff wrong all the time, they issue corrections. I don't agree with the suspension. If this story had been ran by, let's say, CNN, YouTube would not have suspended CNN. It was clearly a case of playing favorites. Crowder was suspended after the video was found to violate YouTube's hate speech policy, though, through repeated targeting of the LGBTQ+ community, YouTube said. But it's not. If it's news, it's news. At the end of the day, Crowder is a comedic news show. So, now, if the news was wrong, yeah, issue your correction and move on, apologize, the whole nine. But again, if CNN had done this, they would not have been suspended. This was not targeted harassment. It was news that it just ended up being a false story. Last year, Boring said the Daily Wire was a $100 million business. The website's 12-month revenue hit $100 million in January 2022, up from about $65 million the full year in 2020. The Daily Wire is among the top publishers on Facebook, and the company's right-wing pundits are some of the most popular conservative creators. Besides news coverage and social media, the Daily Wire produces original movies, has their own book imprint, and other products. The company started selling their own line of men's shaving kits last year after popular grooming brand Harry's Razors pulled their advertising from the site over complaints that the podcast hosts made homophobic comments. And Harry's Razors were also getting small YouTubers to try and promote them for free rather than actually paying them like someone, Dollar Shave Club, for example, would do. So pretty scummy business practice. yeah, all in all, that's the end of that. There's obviously a lot more nuance to this story that I'm not getting you. This was just giving the facts, which, or at least, if not giving the facts, giving very, very concise, clear points to cover, which I do think is important. But at the end of the day, Steven Crowder has been subject to a lot of incorrect statements. Whether you think the guy's a good guy, a bad guy, I really don't know or care. Sometimes I agree with his comments, sometimes I don't, sometimes I like him, sometimes I don't. The fact of the matter is, he is being unjustly attacked by all the Daily Wire pundits for calling out their predatory business practices, and basically people are getting very territorial over their own subject matter, which they should. People should be territorial over what is theirs. However, if what is yours isn't actually yours, if it's actually owned by someone else, maybe don't be so territorial about it. Candace Owens should not be so territorial about her Daily Wire show, because it's not hers. It's the Daily Wire's. And if something happens to her, that show is not hers. That's the end-all, be-all. She should be on the same side as Crowder, but she would rather go to bat for the Daily Wire because she feels offended, which I thought the right wing was the party that, thought being offended was lame, and it was for weak people, and it was for snowflakes. If that's the case, then why is Candace Owens getting offended? Why is everyone getting offended on the right over this back and forth? Because the right and the left are the exact same, just with different looks about them. One is a bunch of white guys in their 40s, and the other are a bunch of minorities and members of the LGBT community. But at the end of the day, all sides are completely and unequivocally ridiculous. And frankly, I hope that Steven Crowder comes out ahead on this. I do think he has the moral high ground. But since the left and right are all morons, who really cares? But that's just my thought process on it. Let me know what yours is in the comments below, or on Twitter. You can follow me at BoltTheWord, and we can get back to covering news of a more nerdy variety. I've got videos on Chris Pratt joining the DC Universe, Dungeons & Dragons, Magic the Gathering, the whole nine. You can find it here in the Nerdosphere, so please subscribe because this has been Words of Paradise.